Welcome into the Jefferson Madrigs Fantasy Podcast, the pod on a mission to normalise 8-team leagues. I'm Pete McManus, and I'm joined by, I'm severely under the weather, Ian Harrison, but still here. So good day, mate.
Still here, still trying to get through it. Yeah, I am under the weather. Anyone that's watching this on YouTube can see that I probably look more rough than usual. I mean, I'm not much to look at to begin with, but you will see that I'm looking pretty ropey at the minute. So yeah, we just get through it. Professional. The show must go on.
Yeah.
Guaranteed if the Bengals lost last night, I would not be here.
You're here, mate, and that's what matters. You know, we've not seen H for about 6 weeks at this point. So, and he's not ill. So, you know, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
That was quite a good. It was quite a good game last night, and I know you were working and you under the weather and stuff. So I'm guessing you just watched the highlights. But it was like a proper NFL game.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so I watched it. So yeah, I was doing a course today. I was teaching a course, as we were saying before. So I had to make a business decision last night and stay in bed. But I did wake up at 5:30 and watched it back in 40. So yeah, it was a good game. It was a good game. I was worried. Like, even though I knew we'd won, watching it back in 40, I was like, oh no, we're gonna lose. It's a terrible mindset to be in, knowing that you've won and still thinking you're gonna lose.
You possibly should have lost. I mean, that punt is just ridiculous. Like, only the cow. I think you mentioned it earlier on one of our WhatsApp groups. The Jets are more than capable of doing that, but there's only about 3 or 4 franchises that could mess that up as badly as the Cowboys did last night.
Yeah, basically, it's either the Cowboys, the Jets, the Browns, or whoever's playing the Chiefs.
Yeah,
are capable of doing that any week.
No. It was funny watching it because I mean I needed points from CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Aubrey to win one of my leagues and get into the playoffs. And the first drive, I had your voice in my head sort of saying the Bengals defense is terrible. And the first drive, I don't know how much this. I mean, obviously you watched the game in 40, you've seen it all. But the first drive, they cut through you, and then he decides to go for it on 4th down, and I'm like, don't go for it. Just kick the field goal, because obviously I'm in that sort of, yes, I want CeeDee Lamb to score points, but he's already had a couple of catches. I was like, just kick the field goal. Don't go for it on 4th down and not get there. And I mean, I've never seen somebody as open as that
I know.
In the end zone. He basically hit a pitching wedge up into the air and then just landed it in CeeDee Lamb, and he's 20 yards away from any defender.
Yeah, and you know what was worse about that play is they lined up with an empty backfield, so the entire defense knew they weren't calling a run play.
No.
So why don't you just go and defend the end zone? Why you shouldn't be getting beat deep from 20 yards out defending the end zone. Like I was saying because obviously we all went out. One of our leagues went out for drinks on Sunday, didn't we? But I was saying, like, Stone, our free safety, he's ranked 63 out of 63 in safeties in the league, and yet he's still playing. Yeah, it's terrible. So with an empty backfield, knowing that it's definitely not a run play, we got beat deep for a score.
Yeah. I don't know whether...
But their first drives, they went red zone.
Yeah. And man, to be fair, only scored once.
The luckiest picture I've ever seen.
Well,
yeah, they went 7 points, interception, which was lucky, and then a field goal. So I was like, we just can't stop them from marching down the field. And let's be honest, it's Cooper Rush. What are we doing?
And you could tell the thing with Cooper Rush last night is when he's got all the time in the world and he's got a run game, he can kind of lead a team, and as long as he's not playing against the top defense, he can lead a team down the field. You know, they've got CeeDee Lamb, they've got a few other weapons, and I like I've forgotten his name now, the punt returner Turpin is really lively.
Oh yeah,
but as soon as it got into the 2-minute drill at the end of the first half, or when they needed it at the end of the second half, can't do it. That's why he's not starting quarterback. It's just like. And I haven't got he just doesn't have the ability to do that. So,
no, I do think he crumbled a bit under the pressure because he was overthrowing receivers. There was one that he threw to either Ferguson or Shoemaker towards the end of the game, and he just threw it massively ahead of Shoemaker or Ferguson, whoever it was. It turned out like he's nowhere ever near going to catch it. And then he overthrew 2 receivers to give us the game. I was like, yeah, he's not got it in. Let's see Trey Lance.
Yeah. Has that given you hope for the playoffs, or are you just sort of going, well, it just keeps the season going for another week?
Sorry, what's that?
I said, has that given you hope for the playoffs, or are you just,
what do you say, mate?
It keeps everything going for another week?
Yeah, one more week. Although I am hopeful we're going to beat the Titans. Although it's Brian Callahan who was our offensive coordinator last year, so that's going to be a tougher game than it should be because he knows his inside out essentially.
They just lost to the Jags. You can't lose to the Titans. You just mentioned we went out on Sunday, and obviously there was a lot going on Sunday. That's one of those games that I didn't even realize the Jags had won until this morning when I was looking back over all the results. I was like, the Jags win that. When you're in a bar and you're not paying much, you're not paying every attention to every play. It's like, and there was so much going on in the Vikings game and some of the other 6 o'clock games. It's like that was so terrible. It just felt like it was 3-0 for forever. I completely missed the fact that the Jags had won it.
Yeah, it wasn't one for the ages, was it? It wasn't one for a neutral. You'd have to be a diehard fan of either of those teams to even remotely try and enjoy that game.
Yeah, definitely not. The Rams-Bills, on the other hand, though, what a game!
Yeah, what a game! What a game! And everyone's talking about the Bills going all the way. You can't get 42 points put up on you. That's ridiculous. 44. You know, like 44. Like I know the Chiefs aren't playing as well as we're used to seeing them play, and they are getting through some games, but their D is giving nowhere near. They're not giving away anything near those points, regardless of who they're playing. Like, the Bills D can't give up that many points and expect to go deep into the off season. I mean, I hope they do. I think they got the talent. I think Josh Allen deserves it. But yeah, that D. Hopefully, that's just a one-off for the Bills.
Yeah, anything can happen, and like what I think it was one of those games though. It just reminded you of, in terms of talking about them going all the way, that playoff run they went on a couple of years ago where Josh Allen had 2 games where he scored about 15 touchdowns in 2 games, and they ended up getting they won the first one obviously, but then they lost the second one, and you're like, he couldn't have played any better, and they still managed to lose the game, and that feels. I mean, well, I'm sure Josh Allen's name will come up again in quarter 2 or later in this podcast, but it just felt a little bit like one of those where he can't do it all. Kind of, you've got to have a bit of support from the rest of your team.
Yeah, someone's got to help him out.
Should we talk about Dan Campbell going for everything on 4th down?
I mean, we can. I mean, at this point, it's not a surprise anymore, is it?
No. It's gonna hurt them, though.
It's not a surprise, and it is like you say. Yeah, you always say he got caught out last year in the playoffs. He cost them the playoffs by going for it on a 4th down they shouldn't have gone for it with. But on the other, his argument is that he's always going to put the game in defense, which does I kind of like. It doesn't mean you have to do it for every 4th down.
No. And that was it. It was the one on Thursday night. Was
especially when you're already in field goal range and then you're pushing it.
Yeah. Well, the one on Thursday night was like they were winning and it was on their own 30-yard line, and I'm like, I think that's it. It kind of like worries me that he's become not a meme of himself, but it's almost as if like I need to prove to everybody that we are going to go for it on every. Like, it's okay to punt unless his punter's terrible, because we never really see the Lions punter, so maybe he's really, really bad. But occasionally, just go. Do you know what? We're 10 points up here, and we're in our own half. So I'm just going to punt it back to them because my defense is also playing really well. So it doesn't always have to be on the offense all the time, I think. So
No, and
Yeah.
I think while he's getting away with it, and he looks like an absolute hero. It's got, like he did last year. When it backfires, he's the one that's going to take. He's going to have to take all that heat because he then can't turn around and go, "Oh well, the offense fudged it,"
Yeah.
because they've pretty much got every fourth down for you all season. They are well, even if you just run the numbers and you run the odds, they are due to not get one at some point.
Yeah.
And now is the time of season where you don't want them to not get one.
No, I've got no real problem with him being aggressive now, and be aggressive, try and win every game, try and get the number one seed, get all of that. But then when you've got the number one seed and you're in the playoffs and you're 10 points ahead, don't be daft with it. Like, you don't have to win by 40 points in the playoffs. All you need to do is get the win. And this is how the Patriots won so many Super Bowls. This is how the Chiefs win so many Super Bowls, or are in the process of winning so many Super Bowls. Like, it doesn't matter how you win. The important thing is that you win at the end of it. So
Yeah,
just find a way to grind it out if you have to, and rely on your kicker, rely on your defense. It's like it doesn't all have to be in Jared Goff and Jahmyr Gibbs' hands.
Yeah, and I think like the old saying or the old adage is, great defense wins championships. And Dan Campbell's like, well, I'm going to prove you all wrong with that. I'm not even going to let our defense have a chance at winning the championship. But I think at some point, especially in the playoffs, he is going to have to rely on his defenses at some point because the games are going to get harder.
There was a few more missed kicks. We talked about this over the last few weeks in terms of field goals missed. Has anyone missed more kicks this year than the team who plays against the Steelers on a week-by-week basis?
I'd have to look at that, I'd have to go back through the stats and see which team has had the most field goals missed against them, because the Steelers have to be up there.
It seems like it's every week. It's every week. So they miss 2 or 3, and then they end up winning by a couple of scores, and you're like, well, that should have been a lot closer. So
yeah, I mean, like Hopkins for the Browns, he's very middle of the road kicker. If he makes one from 50 yards, like, ooh, that was good for him. Yeah. When Justin Tucker's missing 2 field goals and an extra point, you're like, what's going on here?
It's funny, actually, in terms of like kickers. Obviously, I've already mentioned I needed Brandon Aubrey last night. Earlier, it's funny how you change your opinion earlier in the year. So earlier in the year, he was getting 55-yarders, and I'm sat there going, he'll make this, because it didn't really matter. But last night he had a 47-yarder, and I was on the edge of the sofa going, please make this, because it meant so much. It's like, I can't afford for you to miss this. There was no confidence in me at all that he was going to make that kick. Whereas 2 months ago, when we were in week 3 or whatever, I was like, yeah, he'll make that. It's fine.
Yeah, and I think that those little nuances are what's great about fantasy football, because you end up caring about players that in no other world would you ever give a toss about.
Yeah.
Like, why would you ever give a toss about the Cowboys kicker if it wasn't for fantasy?
I think this week was a prime example of like people's playoffs effectively started this week because they needed wins to get in, or if they lost, they were out, and it does show you how it sort of ramps up during the season. It's like everything that's gone in the previous 13 weeks was just to get me to this point, and now I really need that player to step up or whatever. I need a win, so it's the same as the NFL, I suppose.
Yeah.
Right. There was a lot of big performances to talk about this week.
Oh, there was, yeah. Before we get to the big performances, though, I want to talk about, because I was looking at the top 10s of each position not for the week, but for the week and for the season. And like the top 3 running backs for this week is it's mental. Like, if you'd have told me at the start of the season that in week 14, running back 1, 2, and 3 was going to be Zach Charbonnet, Guerrero, and Rashad White, I'd be like, what?
Yeah,
what's happened?
Mate, you didn't have Charbonnet and Guerrero sat on the same bench this week.
Yeah, that's a.
Oh my god! I'm so glad I got away with that, because it was such a terrible decision to play DK Metcalf over either of them, or basically anybody on my bench. I had 130 points on my bench in that league across 5 players. It was bloody shocking. And I played DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf instead. Absolutely rubbish.
So, who you loving then? Actually, while we're talking about DK, because he's in my hating on you section. 4 or 6 for 49 yards, and 3 weeks in a row he's not broken 9 points.
Yeah,
and that's in our main Dynasty League, which is half PPR. So he's probably broken 9 points in normal PPR, but he's not doing it, is he?
No, and it's one of those where this is where I struggle with fantasy football at this time of year, and this weekend was a prime example. I got away with it, but the name of DK Metcalf was just swaying me over Isaac Guerendo, Charbonnet, other people, and I was just like, and it shouldn't be, because it's like you've got. Yes, he's done it in the past, and yes, I know he's capable of doing it. But you've got 3 or 4 weeks there on the trot that you can look back and go, "It's not happening." You know, JSN's the number one target there now. They've got for whatever reason, it's not happening for Metcalf, and we've all seen it before. Like, it'll come from nowhere. But in hindsight, the chances of Zach Charbonnet scoring a touchdown and therefore having a better game, or the chances of Guerendo scoring a touchdown and having a better game, were much higher than DK Metcalf, and I couldn't see it because I was stuck in preseason mode where, to a certain extent, with my rankings, where I'm thinking, but DK Metcalf's a top receiver, and he is a top receiver, and he's a top player, but at the moment he isn't, is he?
No, well, not for fantasy anyway. Well, probably not even for the Seahawks right now because he's obviously not producing.
No.
But you are right. You get caught up in those big names, and you're like, oh yeah, but if I bench him, then he's clearly going to go nuts if I bench him, and I'll look stupid. And you've gone for, tried and tested over several years rather than having a gamble on Guerendo. I think with Charbonnet, we've got some track record from earlier in the year when Kenneth Walker missed a couple of games and Charbonnet looked decent. And I think it's unfair to the lad for when Walker comes back.
Yeah.
And he's relegated back to RB2 because, 22 carries, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7 receptions, another 59 yards, RB1 on the week. He deserves another go. So, and I'm sure most people are hoping that Kenneth Walker stays injured for another week at least.
Yeah, I am. So I just need to be able to play him once. Yeah, I think that's it. Like, we talked about it before we went on air. Like, if Breece Hall's back, I feel like I need to play Breece Hall. But even though deep down I know that he's not been good for most of the year, so it's not. I don't think it's a talent thing. I think it's a team thing. But why? Let's say if Kenneth Walker's still out, most people will play Breece Hall over Zach Charbonnet. But why, on the basis of what's just happened and Breece Hall being injured and stuff, Zach Charbonnet feels like the play. He's just having the cojones to go. Actually, I'm gonna go with Zach Charbonnet in a playoff game, because now we're going into the fantasy playoffs and stuff. You need it to work, don't you? So
yeah, I think you'd really struggle to justify. Someone asked you, why have you played Breece Hall over Zach Charbonnet this week? I think you'd really struggle to justify why you're doing that.
Yeah, it's just the name. He was a first round overall pick and all that sort of stuff. It's like you've got nothing in the last month to claim there's a reason for doing it. I think that's it. That's my one piece of advice this week, which I really need to take my own advice, is to look at the last couple of weeks and just base it on that alone and go, right, who's in form, who's looking good, who's playing against the teams who give up points on the ground or through the air or whatever, as opposed to just going, actually, he was ranked higher at the beginning, so I'm just going to stick with him, or he was a first round pick as opposed to a 4th round pick.
Yeah.
One player who will definitely be in every lineup this weekend, though, is your boy Ja'Marr Chase. Him and Burrow over the last 4 or 5 weeks, or last 4 or 5 games, absolutely unstoppable. So I'm not even going to read you his line from this week because it was amazing. But I went back and looked at his last 4 games. And in the last 4 games, he's caught 38 passes for 602 yards and 8 touchdowns.
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, he is being helped by the fact that Zach Taylor is just refusing to punt the ball, because we know that the defense is not. They're not going to stop him. Yeah. As soon as we give whoever it is we're playing, as soon as we give them the ball back through a punt or through whatever, we know for a fact it's points. It's 3 or 7. So we are having the extra plays that are going to give it to Ja'Marr Chase. And obviously Jamar Chase, Burrow's going to go to Jamar Chase on 4th down whenever he can. So he is being helped by the fact that our defense is shocking. But, he's still got to get the yards after the catch. And he's doing it quite easily as well.
He's a great player. Last night, 18 targets. But he's getting all of it. He's got, like I say, some 57 targets in the last 4 games. That's almost, it's more than 14 a game. He is, in terms of plugging in a wide receiver and going, I know that's going to work, then there's very few as good as Jamar Chase. And I was thinking about that today because I know you've done quite well in a lot of our fantasy leagues this year. But then when I think about it, I was like, a Bengals fan who has always had a thing for older running backs should really be smashing it this year. So, you've always loved an older running back, and then Burrow and Chase. I know you've got that stack in a few leagues. You did me with the Chase, the double Chase stack in one league last night. And I'm just like, the
Chase Brown and the Jamar Chase stack. Yeah, that's a great stack for me.
That was like 70 points that I didn't need going against me. Knocked me out of a league. So thanks for that.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that one, mate. Kind of.
Yeah. In terms of wide receivers, one who did reappear this weekend, Tyreek Hill's back. 10 catches for 115 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that stat line, and I went through Twitter to see if he'd been arrested on his way to work again. I'm like, what's going on? Did he get pulled over, or did he get pulled over, or has he been arrested at home or something? But no, Tyreek Hill seems to be back, or at least for 1 week.
Yeah. It wasn't the Jonnu Smith game for once. It was like Tyreek Hill, Waddle was getting. It was like, it looked a little bit more like the 2023 Dolphins for least for 60 minutes.
Well, Jonnu Smith got 5 minutes, did he? He had his 5 minutes in overtime. 3 catches,
one drive. That was all he needed. One drive to get about 13 points, which if you had Jonnu Smith, you would have been delighted with. Anyone you wanted to add?
Well, we can't not talk about Josh Allen.
No, I was leaving him to last.
Oh, right.
I think he deserves it.
Yeah.
What a game.
Yeah, 22 of 37, 342 yards, 3 touchdowns, 82 rushing yards, and 3 more touchdowns. Only the second man in history to do that. 3 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns. And he's the first in the Super Bowl era. So it depends what his scoring format was, but how many points you're getting for passing touchdowns. But some leagues he got 51.88. In a couple of leagues he got 57.88, which is a ridiculous amount of points for a quarterback.
Yeah. I think that was it. It's the 80 yards rushing on top of the 342 passing, as well as the touchdowns. It wasn't just they were in the red zone and they're scoring touchdowns. That play at the end of the game, though, where they burnt a timeout, which effectively cost them, was terrible. That was another terrible decision from the coaches this weekend. I don't know what you've got, and even Tom Brady's. I don't like Tom Brady. I don't think he's a great commentator, but he's sort of going, you've got 3 attempts to throw that in from the 2-yard line or whatever. It's like, if you rush it and you don't get it, you've got to burn a timeout. It's like, it makes no sense. Just throw it to the end zone. So,
yeah.
And then they ended up getting the ball back with like 6 seconds to go or whatever. And, I think they ended up getting the ball back. They would have had the ball back with 40 seconds to go and, had a chance to go down the field and win that game. But there you go.
Yeah.
The reason I was going to leave Josh Allen to last was because it leads on. It was what a great performance, massive game. What was that? 86 points scored. Leads me on to one of my disappointment players. In that, how has all of that happened and James Cook's not scored 5 fantasy points?
Well, who's doing all the rushing?
It's absolutely terrible. 6 attempts for 20 yards, 2 catches for another 9 yards. I was like, what? Where were you? Where were you when all of this is going on? I was like, James Cook is so frustrating as a running back.
I know, and you got Josh Allen who's had 37 pass attempts, and then he's had 10 carries himself. They might have been on pass plays that he's tugged it and ran. So there's 47 plays from the game gone already, and James Cook's just feeding on scraps there.
Yeah.
But for James Cook to have a good week, you need him to be explosive off, 10, 15 touches.
He's
like he was in the snow game.
Yeah, James Cook is slightly better than this, so it's a bit harsh. but he's like the Jordan Addison of running backs. It's like there's a big game in there, but you just don't know when it's coming. So if you want it, you've got to keep playing him. And he's very capable of just putting up 4 points in a game.
Yeah,
he's capable of putting up 4. There's no flaw with James Cook.
No, but then players like James Cook and Jordan Addison, like Jordan Addison's actually in my hating on you section because he had a great game. But I said the other week, I can't play him anywhere because I can't trust him. Just because he's had one great game, am I going to trust him in the playoffs? Absolutely not.
That's a big game, though.
Yeah, if I am decimated by injuries, then Jordan Addison's going in, but I can't trust him in the playoffs. He's been so inconsistent all year, and one good week doesn't necessarily mean he's going to have another good week.
I tell you what, who he will have a better week than Jayden Reed.
Oh my God!
I played. This is how bad Jayden Reed was. I played Josh Allen in a league and lost, and part of that was because of Jayden Reed.
Jayden Reed. So, oh my God!
Really diluting his. I mean, to be fair, the guy I was playing against scored like 200 points, and it was ridiculous. But I was like, that was not the start that I needed on Thursday at all.
No.
He's another Jordan Addison. There's definitely a game in there. You just don't know when it's coming, and he's more than capable of putting up 3 zeros.
Yeah, but while we're on the Packers, we're going to give Josh Jacobs another mention, another hat trick, 3 touchdowns, second time in 3 weeks.
He's part of the problem, I think.
Yeah.
I'm only saying he's part of the problem because I don't own him, but I do have a lot of Jayden Reed. It's like, why would we throw the ball to Jayden Reed and just hand it off to Jacobs and he'll run it in from 10 yards? So,
yeah.
Never really been a big believer of Josh Jacobs, but he's definitely got it done the last few weeks.
Yeah, he has, yeah. But someone else who I'm appreciating for the wrong reasons, is Jake Elliott. I'm appreciating Jake Elliott going none of 1 from field goals and 2 extra points in a league where I needed to win to make it into the playoffs, and I won by 0.18 thanks to Jake Elliott missing that field goal. Now, and I know there's a stat adjustment coming somewhere. Like it's a 2-yard difference. I'm through by 2 yards.
What's the cutoff on that?
It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday morning. It's tomorrow morning, I think.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I think it's tomorrow morning.
It change as much. You'd be gutted if you wake up tomorrow morning and you've lost by 1 yard or whatever.
Yeah. Well, like I said to you guys, like I hope they do a stat adjustment and they give someone 1 yard.
1 yard.
I've won by 0.08. I'm like, I'll take that. But I'll be raging if they give me 2.
You got any more before we wrap it up?
Yeah. In terms of hating on, and it's basically anyone that plays for the Bears this week.
Yeah.
Apart from Rome Odunze. So you had the issue the other week where you did fantasy game day and you picked Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen and DJ Moore both went off. This week it was the absolute opposite. DeAndre Swift, nothing. 14 carries, 38 yards. Keenan Allen, 3 of 5, 30 yards. Like I thought we were at the point where we could start trusting Caleb Williams a bit. And when it just seems that we're not there, we're not quite there yet. But he made some bad decisions this week.
Yeah, he's a rookie though, isn't he? He's going to make bad decisions.
Yeah.
I think.
Yes.
I think just one more from me. I agree with everything you said on that, but one more from me. Only because I know you'll enjoy this one. It wasn't that bad a game. He scored 9.5 points in full PPR. But Travis Kelce is just not the same player he used to be. He's had a few games this year. He's still tight end 5 on the year, but he's only scored 2 touchdowns in 14 weeks or 13 games.
See, this is what happens when you start your own podcast. Your performance at your actual job diminishes, or so my boss tells me.
Yeah, I'm not asked mine. That's my his opinion.
Focus on doing your actual job. Rather than trying to get a podcast off the ground.
Yeah.
I think that's why Kelsey's fallen off. There is one last person I'd like to mention. Sorry, because I know you wanted to finish there.
That's right.
But it's Deebo Samuel.
Oh, it's gone.
Yeah.
H tried to trade him to me 2 weeks ago. He was like, oh, Debo's, he's top wide receiver. I was like, he's not anymore though, is he? Like, I'm watching the same games you're watching. So he threw him in with a couple of other players, and I can't even remember who he wanted off me in a dynasty league. But you could tell he was trying to use the name of Deebo Samuel as opposed to the recent performances of Deebo Samuel.
Yeah. What was worrying about Deebo this week is that he had more carries than targets. He had 5 carries and only got 3 targets, and that is, that's a scary prospect heading into the playoffs.
I think the worrying thing is he didn't look very good with them, because he's had games before where they've gone, actually, let's use you as more of a running back, and if Garendo's out, they're going to use him as more of a rusher as well. But it just doesn't look like he's going to get it done.
No, he's not looking good.
Game day. How did we get on in game day?
Yeah, so it was H's turn to pick the team, and essentially we didn't do very well. I gave him Alvin Kamara as captain, 25.8 points. So that's on me. That's not a great return. He went with Kyler Murray, 17.96. That's not bad. He did get Charbonnet, 38.3. So he got the RB1. But then he, like pretty much everyone did because of the money, he went with Braylon Allen when it was Isaiah Davis that went off instead of him. He had Cooper Kupp for 20 points, Mike Evans for 10. Then he had James Cook in flex, which you've already covered. It was a terrible decision. And then he had Pat Freiermuth, who got 13.8. So that's a good return for your tight end. Like any kind of double figures from your tight end is a good return, really. I'm saying in this. So basically, my choice of captain, Braylon Allen and James Cook, let us down this week.
Touching on what you said before, in terms of, I went with Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze. Again, that's my stack. I don't know why. This is it with daily fantasy football. I can take gambles. I can do, which is one of the things I like about fantasy game days. Like, I can go, actually, I've got a feeling that's going to work, and it's not affecting. I don't have this overall. It's going to affect my overall league performance or whatever. It's like I can just take a gamble on it. And I think I ended up finishing 7th because I had Charbonnet and Garendo as well. So I was like, good performance.
Good going.
Yeah, it's good.
So it's H's turn to pick a captain for you this week. So we'll get in touch with H.
Yeah.
I think they must have released this week's games by now. So H can have a look at that, log on and get you a captain.
It's worth it should be interesting game day over the next few weeks because you've got like the 2 Christmas Day games. So it'll be worth having one of the £3 games or the £7.50 games or whatever on then. I think this is the sort of time of the season, especially as your normal fantasy season comes to an end. This is the time of the season where I think I'll really, especially now I've got some winnings to play with, I'll start getting involved a little bit more in some of the other fantasy game day. I usually just do the Sunday one, but I think there'll be a bit more of me playing on Christmas Day and then playing the other games in between and stuff. So, yeah. As we've said before, if you've not got the app, download the app, use our code JMDFS to get yourself a free week when you pay for a week. Right. JMD, JTT, Fantasy League, Dynasty. The regular season is over.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about it.
You missed out, didn't you?
I did miss out, yeah. Yeah, I did.
Well, let's start. Let's do a quick run through. So in the Brady division, I'll just go quickly through the top scorers. In the Brady division, top scorer was Ranid Shaspid, 202.28. So a big score there. In the Elway division, top scorer was heads of the table, 198.58. Not enough to make the playoffs, but a good way to finish the regular season. Can't buy a win in the Manning division. Has top scored 4 weeks on the trot. No, sorry. 3 weeks on the trot and has won 5 games, I think, on the trot now. So since he renamed his team, Can't Buy a Win has gone on and bought lots of wins.
I might have to do that next year.
198.78 to go from, I think it was from 2-7 to 7-7 and scrape into the playoffs. So great performance. Definitely one to watch in our division. And then there was 2 massive scores in your division. Surviving Taysom Hill got 213.78, just pipping Team MKC Papa with 211.1. So some big scoring there. You've had a lot of big scoring in your division. A lot of 200 pointers. It's been a 200 pointer every single week for like the last half of the season.
Yeah, not for me.
So the playoff in the Brady division, the playoffs are the league was won, for those who care. The league was won by Renisha Speed at 9-5, just pipping Never Dull in Hull. So Renisha Speed will take on Yeovil Town 49ers in the semi-finals, and Never Dull in Hull will take on Owner of Brady. So that's the Brady division. H blew it, basically. He had a chance.
Oh.
He had a winning in situation, and he bottom scored with 129.62 and ends up finishing 6-8. So that's why he's not on the pod today. He's potential comeback.
But I also finished 6-8. To be fair, I've just checked it, and even if I would have won my matchup, I wouldn't have got in because Dynasty Island didn't beat Surviving Taysom Hill. So
I know you needed a couple of things to happen. In the Elway division, the league was won by Team DS Liddy 92 at 10-4. They will take on Team 89 Monday in the playoffs, and the other two are Team Suarez Power against the final boss they will fight it out in a place for the Super Bowl in that division. In our division, or my division, we've got the Last Waltz ended up finishing 12-2. So I think he got to 10-0, then had a 2-game skid, and then has pulled it back together with 2 wins to finish the season, 12-2, which not only wins the league, but has the best record overall of all the divisions, which wins you absolutely nothing, but it's a nice little thing to, stick on your Twitter bio or something. They play Can't Buy a Win, so they're playing the hot Can't Buy a Win coming in, and then my JMD Penguins at 9-5 will play Team Mungry Pablo, who finished 11-3. So I've got my work cut out for me, and I'm hoping the fact that they've just put up 192 points this week means that he's going to have a down week next week. So these things come and go, don't they? So let's hope he got all of that out of his system this week, and I can give him a game next week. And then in your Merino division, we talked about the top scorers. Dynasty Cowboys ended up finishing 11-3 and winning the league despite having the lowest score of the week this week. Didn't matter. They will play Sherlock Mahomes, who finished 7-7, and the other semi-final is Team Dynasty Island against Surviving Taysom Hill, who's also 7-7. So a few teams sneaking in at 7-7 on the last day. So that's the state of the individual divisions. Obviously, a lot to play for there for the 4 teams that made it through from each division. In the Champions League, the top 2 seeds got a bye the first week, and then this week they came into action and they both got beat. So it just shows you, just shows you nothing matters before the season. But it also shows you that with all of these competitions, it all comes down to who you play against. So Dynasty Cowboys only scored 138.78. They were the number 1 seed going in and were beaten by Team Suarez Power, who scored 184. So that was pretty straightforward. One team wins by the best part of 45 points. On the same side of that draw, Team Pestle scored 128.04, which was beaten by Owner of Brady with 136. So only scored 136, and that was enough because of who they were playing. On the other side, Team Dynasty Island actually put up a good score, 100 they were the second seed. Team Dynasty Island, 175 points, beaten by the final boss with 179. So had they been on the left side of the draw, probably be through, but they're not. They're on the right side of the draw, so they got knocked out. And Never Dull in Hull put up the second highest score out of the 8 teams with 188 and lost to Renege Speed, who put up the top score out of the 8 teams. So Never Dull in Hull is the one who really needs to feel unfortunate this week because still got beat by 14 points despite putting up a massive 188. So they're out of the cup. They're out of the Champions League as well. So the final 4 is Team Suarez Power of the Elway division will play Owner of Brady of the Brady division, and then on the other side, it's the final boss of the Elway division against Renisha Speed from the Brady division. So 2 from the Elway, 2 from Brady. up against each other. We could have an all-division Champions League final.
Ooh, right, okay.
I've updated the graphic. I'll stick it on all of the various different groups and stuff, and then we'll give you another update next week. So well done to everyone who's still involved. And there's plenty to play for everyone else in terms of looking forward to next season with more information to come.
Yeah, good luck to everyone that made it to the playoffs. All the best in that.
How are you looking? Anything exciting you waiver wire wise this week?
No, not really. Not exciting.
It's a bit grim, isn't it?
No, I mean there's a couple of obvious ones. So there's obviously Guerendo's gone for an MRI this week. He's a bit banged up. Now Guerendo said he feels fine, but this is a rookie running back who wants to play football, so he's obviously going to say he feels fine. And we've obviously had the issue earlier in the season with Jordan Mason basically announcing that he's getting the start and CMC's out, and you can't really trust what 49ers players are saying anymore. So the obvious pickup there is Israel Abanikanda, who they only just acquired. No, because I'm going Abanikanda. I don't trust Patrick Taylor. I think Abanikanda is the more explosive runner, and I think he fits the 49ers schemes better than Patrick Taylor.
Okay.
So they only signed him on free agency this just before last week's game. So he's had a week to get up to speed. And I'd be targeting him rather than Patrick Taylor.
I wrote down Patrick Taylor, and I've just written next to it, next man up, which is kind of like, I mean, the 49ers have got a habit of doing this. Guerendo is a perfect example at the weekend, but I feel like there's also a big part of me, and you just touched on it, I suppose, with the fact that they signed Abanikanda, is that we're getting into the depths of people they didn't expect to be playing at this point. So it's one thing when you kind of go, oh, he was the second man up and he's the third man. Like, we're on to number 5 now. They've gone through McCaffrey, Mason, Mitchell, Guerendo. It's like, how deep is this running back room? So Patrick Taylor probably doesn't even get a seat in the running back room if everybody's fit. Like, he's probably just stood up in the corner. So
he's probably stood in the corridor with a glass against the door, listening to what the game plan is for the week. It's like, guys, can I come in here? Yeah.
I think it's my turn. I was like, there is an element.
He's on Zoom.
Yeah, at some point you've got to stop just going, let's bring the next sport. It would worry me. It would worry me that, I don't know. But at the same time, it wouldn't shock me in the slightest.
But however, I do want to make the point, like, I wouldn't be, if it's the playoffs, if you lose, you're done. Depending on how your structure is. Like, now is not the time to be having a gamble on like Israel Abanikanda, or the next one I would go on to is Isaiah Davis at the Jets if Breece Hall sits again. Because Braylon Allen, he didn't really do much this week. Isaiah Davis was clearly the more explosive player. Looks quite decent as well, but if you've got better options on your bench than Isaiah Davis, then you're gonna be playing him. You're gonna go with tried and tested.
It feels a bit like that Isaiah Davis, and you never know whether that's going to be it. He could have another 3 good weeks. Breece Hall could get put on IR or sat down for the rest of the season. But it feels a bit like, when Amir Abdullah had that big game out of nowhere for the Raiders, and then he was top of the waiver wire, and he's basically just done nothing since. And and it's like, people bite you trying to chase last week's points, and Isaiah Davis to me feels a bit like chasing last week's points. I'm not sure, especially as Braylon Allen was the backup for most of the. It's not like there's nobody else there. It feels a bit like we're chasing last week's points, and it wasn't. Now is not the time to do it. I've only written down running backs because there wasn't any. The only wide receivers that I thought could be interesting, we've already mentioned in previous weeks. You talked about Adam Thielen. I think he should be on most waiver wires, most teams by now if you were going to pick him up. But
10 targets last week, 9 targets this week.
Yeah. The one running back who sticks out, and he will have been on most he will have been rostered in most leagues at some point this year, but I think there's a good chance he'll have been dropped in a lot of them, is Tank Bigsby. And he got 18 carries on Sunday, which is not an insignificant amount. And then next 3 games,
that has to be a career high for him. As I know he only had 2 years, but that has to be a career high in touches.
But they've got the Jets next, which isn't the easiest matchup, but then they finish with Vegas and Tennessee again, and it kind of or finish in terms of fantasy wise, they finish that way. And I'm kind of like, he could, if they want to see what they've got in him, back end of the second season, kind of give ETN a little bit of a rest because it's not really gone well for him this year, then I think Tank Bigsby could be an interesting one if you're looking for a running back. I'd rather go Tank Bigsby. I trust Tank Bigsby more than I trust Isaiah Davis or Patrick Taylor or the other lad, Abanikanda. Like, they all feel like a little bit more of a gamble, whereas Bigsby feels like it's at least going to be, especially with not knowing who's going to be playing quarterback, it feels a bit like you could just hand him the ball 20 times and he doesn't need to do an awful lot with it to give you a little bit of a floor.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Before we move on, though, I do want to make a point about waivers as we're going into the playoffs now. But now is the time, if you've got the space on your bench or there are players that you're willing to part ways with, now is the time you should be handcuffing the players that you've already got. So I've been banging the drum all last week about if the Bengals had lost against the Cowboys, playoffs out of reach, there is no way we're playing Joe Burrow or Ja'Marr Chase for the rest of the season. We're just not going to risk him. Especially Joe Burrow after we paid him all that money. T. Higgins will run to the ground. But Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase probably wouldn't play another snap if we lost against the Cowboys. If we lose this week, there's a decent chance they're not going to play the week after, which is the playoff finals. So you need to start planning ahead for things like that for teams that are actually looking at, potentially sitting the star players. Likewise, if you've got players like Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry, start picking up their backups now if you've got space on your bench. Because you don't want Saquon Barkley to get injured. I just don't think they're risky.
Well, I just can't see him going, I'm just not going to play. Chase is different because he's owed money. Well, he's not owed money. He wants money. And he can't get injured. Whereas Burrow's already got his money. I don't know. You might be right.
I just don't think we'd risk next season by playing Burrow.
I think you win this week. I mean, you need us to beat the Broncos at the same time, really, to keep your season alive. But which isn't going to happen, by the way. But
I know.
You never know. You never know. Anyone else want to mention?
Sorry. I just want to remember Juwan Johnson. If you're looking for a tight end, Juwan Johnson at the Saints. He had a good game. I think he had like 5 targets, got a touchdown.
Right. Have you got a selection nightmare this week?
Yes, I do. Sorry for the delay. I just blew my nose. I do. But this is in our main dynasty. So am I playing against you in our main dynasty playoffs?
Yeah.
Right.
So
this is
ridiculous. I've got about 3 decisions in that, and I left them all out because I thought I'm not asking you what you think of them. So
I think in terms of fairness, you should get one of them out and ask me, because I'm going to ask you about this one.
I'm doing it.
So I have got an issue with my super flex position, and it's about which quarterback to put in. And I wouldn't have thought at the start of the season. I've not got Aiden O'Connell. He's going nowhere near it.
Have you got Mac Jones?
No, it is Jordan Love, who is playing against the Seahawks, or Sam Darnold against the Bears.
Oh,
exactly. So who'd have thought that at the start of this season, by week 15, we're like, oh, is Sam Darnold better than Jordan Love? No one would have thought it. But Love's not having the best of seasons. He's only breached 20 points 3 times this year. The last time he did it was in week 11 against the Bears. Darnold, however, has gone for 23, 21, 19, and 34 in his last 4 games. But he has a harder matchup against the Bears D than Jordan Love does against the Seahawks.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I'm pretty torn on that. That is a tough one because
you don't want to tell me.
I think Jordan Love hasn't been putting the points up, but I think he looks good. I think a lot of it comes back to the fact that if they hadn't been putting the points up and not winning, then you kind of go, well, what's going on with Jordan Love? But they're just Josh Jacobs is doing the job. So if the Seahawks find a way to slow Jacobs down or shut him down a little bit, I think you'll see the best of Jordan Love. Sam Darnold feels like the obvious pick because he's on a bit of, he played really well on Sunday, but Sam Darnold's also more than capable of going putting 5 touchdowns at 1 week and mean, that game he had against, is it the Jags? He just had an absolute nightmare. And you kind of look at it on paper and go, he should have been throwing 3 touchdowns there. And he just had a nightmare.
Yeah.
I suppose I would lean Love. It's very much on the fence. I think I would lean Love because I think depends what you need. Again,
I need points.
No, but I think if looking at the rest of your roster, if you think I need to not. Jordan Love's the one who's going to have a higher floor. I think he's going to get you a solid amount of points, and he might do better than that, and it could end up in a bit of a shootout against the Seahawks. Whereas Sam Darnold feels like he'll either go out and throw 3 picks or he'll go and throw 3 touchdowns in the first half. So he's a little bit more. If you were asking me which one's more likely to put up 30 points, I'd say Sam Darnold. But if you're asking me which one's going to give you the safer floor, I'd say Jordan Love. Right, and that's my creative way.
That's it. Okay, right.
That's my creative way of sitting on the fence.
Right. Well, I might just drop Lamar and play them both then. Yeah, I might just drop Lamar Jackson and play them both then.
I didn't know that was an option. You should definitely do that. Lamar's due a bad game.
So go on then, who's yours?
I've not looked at our matchup yet, but your quarterbacks are definitely better than my quarterbacks. I'm hoping I beat you in some other area of the field, but I'm not beating you at quarterback. I think I'm starting Jameis Winston. That's how my week's going to be. Mine is in another league I've got, and I ended up starting both of these running backs this week. And the more we talked about the running backs who are on waivers, the more I feel like I might actually go to waivers and see who's available. But it's dynasty leagues, so they're less likely to be available. My options are Jaylen Warren at the Eagles or Gus Edwards against the Bucs.
Oh my word!
I didn't say it was an exciting option.
That is, how many teams are in this league? This can't be an 8-team league.
No, it's I think it's 12 to be fair, and it was one of those dynasty teams that I took over, and it's got a good starting roster, and then there wasn't a lot else after that. And my starting running backs were McCaffrey and Mixon. So had they both stayed, I mean, obviously Mixon's all right, but had McCaffrey stayed fit, this wouldn't have been a problem. Jaylen Warren and Gus Edwards seemed like good options as backups. But now that I've got to put one of them in the first round of the playoffs, they don't seem as good options now. Now I don't really want to play them, but I've got to play one.
Yeah, I think, I'm edging towards Gus Edwards. I think I'd rather have Gus Edwards versus the Bucs. I think that's more likely, there's more chance of that being a shootout with, when it's the Steelers who are just going to get field goals against the Eagles. I don't think Russell Wilson will have a decent game against the Eagles because their secondary's class. And Pickens might be out for another week. So it might be, yeah.
Yeah, apparently he looks like he is.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that as a high-scoring game, especially for the Steelers anyway. I just don't see any. I can't see the Steelers getting anything going, either on the ground or through the air. But that being said, it's a game they'll end up probably winning through 6 field goals, and the Eagles miss 4 of them because it's Jake Elliott, obviously, isn't it?
They'll win 18-17, 6 field goals, and then the Eagles will score. Hurts will get his tush push. Elliott will get 1 of 4. And then that Calcaterra will score 1, and that's how it would just be 18-17. That was the end of that.
Yeah. So I think I'd take Gus Edwards.
Gus Edwards. It's a grim decision, wasn't it?
That wasn't enjoyable at all. And I know the whole, but it's not supposed to be enjoyable. That's why it's a nightmare. But I can't believe that's your options going into the playoffs. Are you actually in the playoffs in this league?
Yeah.
Ugh. Right. Well, that's your season finished.
It's quite it's one of those quite a deep rosters, but all my flex. I think it's got 2 or 3 flex positions. Might be 3 wideouts and 2 flex. but they're all like I just play wide receivers. My wide receivers are all right. I've got Amon-Ra, I've got Tyreek Hill, I've got Devonta Smith. So I was like, I've got some decent wide receivers. I just don't have any running backs. But hopefully Joe Mixon will come back and score enough points to make up for whichever one of those two I have to play with him.
Yeah, I would probably, like you were saying, get head to waivers, and if you can get Abanikanda, you probably won't get Isaiah Davis now, but because a load of people picked him up last week. But I reckon you'll have a decent chance of getting Abanikanda.
And that's where
I'd rather roll the dice there than go with either of those two.
Yeah, that's where going back to one of them. It's like I'd rather take a punt on Patrick Taylor, I think, than running with Warren or Edwards, but because I can't see either of them scoring particularly well. Gus Edwards seems to score a touchdown and still only get to 10 points. So I don't know how. I don't know what else you need. I don't know how you're ever going to get anywhere near 20. Right, primetime games. For some reason, we both thought the Chargers were going to beat the Chiefs this weekend. And
yeah, what are we doing?
I don't really know. I was thinking about this on Sunday in the lead up to the game, because I was like, I don't know where we thought that was going to happen, because they haven't got any receivers, and their best running back is Gus Edwards, who we've just talked about. So I was like, Justin Herbert's a great player, but he just doesn't have any weapons at the moment. So I don't know how we thought they were going to have enough to beat the Chiefs, as bad as the Chiefs seem to be at the moment. But that inevitably, that was where it fell down. We backed the Bengals. We trusted the Bengals, and that was all fine. The Lions won on, was it the Lions? Thursday night always seems like a long time ago by the time we record this podcast. But yeah, the Lions was Thursday night, so that was all good. But it was the Chargers who let us down. So no money this week. We've got 4 primetime games. Thursday night is Rams at 49ers, which should be a lovely way to start the week, especially in your fantasy playoffs with plenty of players on either side of that matchup. Have you seen enough from the 49ers to say they can beat the Rams, or do we think the Rams are on a roll now?
No, I think the Rams, they're on a high after putting up 40 odd against the Bills. They're gonna roll into San Fran. And I think, I don't think the 49ers have got enough.
I think that could be, if they lose, that could be 49ers season over.
Well, it would be, essentially.
We might have to go at H on that. I'm feeling 49ers. So,
crunch time. You reckon they'll do it?
Split decision, yeah. I think they'll at home. I think they looked good. I mean, I know they weren't playing much at the weekend, but they looked good. They looked like something had clicked. But they put up a lot of points on the Bears. Not Monday night. Sunday night is then Packers at Seahawks. A couple of games we've already talked about here.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a tough one, but I do think the Seahawks at home are going to do it.
Yeah, the Seahawks have looked a bit better. Like they look like they've got control of that division, and they don't want to let go.
Yeah.
Especially if Charbonnet is going to play the same way he played at the weekend. So I agree with you on that. We'll take the Seahawks there. Packers are a good side. Should be a good game, that actually.
Yeah.
Couple of good games there. Monday night on the other side, though, they've managed to find 2 games for Monday night, and I'm not excited by either of them. They've done this a few times this year, where they've picked 2 Monday night games and neither of them look like they're worth watching. And it just feels a bit like, we know we've got to put you on prime time at some point. Like early in the Premier League season, where it's I don't know, Brighton against Brentford or something or Ipswich against Leicester in the first Sunday in September, and you're just trying to tick a box here and get this out of the way before
get it out of the way. We don't have to see him ever again for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that feels a bit like this. So first up is Bears at Vikings, which I will be amazed if you don't say Vikings.
No, it has to be, doesn't it? Like I had a rant about Bears receivers and the Bears offense in quarter 2. I can't now sit here and say that the Bears are going to turn the Vikings over.
Are you? I know you mentioned this on Sunday. He's got to be in the running for Coach of the Year, hasn't he?
Kevin O'Connell?
Yeah.
Well, I was only talking about him because I think he's good looking. I wasn't.
Brilliant.
it had nothing to do with his coaching prowess. I was like, you know what? Kevin O'Connell's a good-looking dude.
I'm not going to disagree with you, but I was thinking more about his actual ability to coach a football game or a football team because they went into the season with very little hope. Well, not very little hope, but they didn't really know what to expect. They're in a tough division. The Lions are obviously pulling it all together, and they stuck with them most of the way. And I mean, that's all setting up for potentially a really big game in Week 18 when they play the Lions. And
Yeah.
I just think he's done it like he's just turned Sam Darnold into a usable quarterback.
Yeah. Hopefully he'll
a
do it
very
with Dan
good
Jones.
quarterback, better than usable. He might have he's potentially made Sam Darnold about $50 million in the last 3 months. So Sam Darnold's going to get a deal from somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I think the Vikings will bring him back. Like they can't. I mean, they should. Well, I don't know. I don't see why they wouldn't. Obviously, they got JJ McCarthy, and they have a lot of belief in the rookie that they took in the first round. But Sam Darnold's done enough to prove that you should stick with me.
Mm-hmm. It's just whether they can afford him now.
Well, that is the case, yeah.
This is the point I made about other teams in the summer. It's like you bring these players in, if you don't give them a contract, you're kind of in a no-win. I think you're in a no-win situation because they play well for you, and then you can't afford to keep them because you haven't trusted that they were going to do that and give them the contract in the first place. But so we'll go with the Vikings. So we need split decision from H on Rams 49ers. We'll go with Seahawks. We'll go with Vikings, and then the other game, which no one's going to watch, is Falcons at Raiders on Monday night.
I mean, this could be Penix versus whoever the Raiders have got left.
Kirk Cousins looks like he's done, doesn't he?
I made the point last week that there's absolutely no chance of him benching him, given how much money they're paying him over the next 3 years after this season. But that is back-to-back horrific games for Kirk Cousins, and I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing Penix. It might be that they just start resting Cousins and say, right, just get your head right for next year, and we're going to chuck Penix in.
The problem is they're still well in the hunt for the division. Like they're only
which is ridiculous, isn't it? It sounds ridiculous because we had this chat. Was it last week or the week before? Like who's going to win that division? And we both said the Falcons are in a good position, but it's got to be the Bucs.
Yeah, and there's no way you could. Over the last couple of weeks, anything can happen, and I realise it all changes quickly. I don't think the Bucs have looked that good, but there's no way I would be putting any money on the Falcons to finish above the Bucs on current form. Like there's just I just can't see it.
However, they will beat the Raiders.
Yes, definitely, because the Raiders are a mess. So but I fancy Max Crosby to cause enough havoc to just make Cousins look terrible again, and then the Falcons will find a way because they've got Bijan Robinson, who I keep repeating is not getting enough praise for the season that he's having.
No, that entire game plan is we're going to give it Bijan Robinson, and he's going to run the opposite way where Max Crosby is.
Yeah.
And that is our game plan for the Raiders. Where's Max Crosby? Run it the other side.
You sound like Kevin O'Connell now. Not quite as good looking.
No, it's not as good looking. Nowhere near as good looking. Nowhere near.
Right. That was the week 15. Can't believe we're at this point already. The week 15 preview of the JMD Fantasy Podcast. Follow us on socials at JMD Pod. Like and subscribe on YouTube. We appreciate the support as always. And that's it. Good luck with your matchup this week, mate.
Yeah, you too.
Not the one against me.
We've got a big one. Yeah, we've got a big one, and obviously there's no hard feelings. After I
did say to H, because we've got in our original league, our original redraft league, we're still on the NFL.com platform, which I cannot say enough is not a good platform. So don't play on it. If you're listening, you think, that sounds interesting. Don't. We're moving over to Sleeper this year.
It's still better than MFL, though. Still better than MFL.
Yes, still better. Everything's better than that. And but we know who the playoff teams are with 1 week to go of the regular season. So this week is all about who's going to win that league title. And I did say to H jokingly messaged me saying, I'm going to rest some of my players this week. They deserve it after we've made the playoffs. I said, this week is all about avoiding Ian in the semi-finals for me. Because that team of yours with Burrow and Chase, and like you are top scored, I think, for like, apart from this week where H beat you by 2 points, you've top scored for like 5 weeks on the trot. I do not want to be playing you in week 16. So that's
Yeah.
there's nothing I can do. All I can do is beat H and hope that you win, and therefore we're not playing each other in week 16 because I really don't want that. So
yeah, fair enough.
I don't want my ass handing to you by your team. Right. Thanks for listening as always, everyone. We appreciate it. Tell your mates, share it around, and we will catch up with you next week where you can hear about my victorious effort over Ian in Dynasty.
Well, it'll be HA next week, not me.